I am the philosophical bachelor, and today I'm going to talk about Schopenhauer's view of art. I was admiring Taiwanese artist Chang Ping-tang's depiction of Chikan Tower at the hotel lobby in Tainan, the oldest city in Taiwan. In comparison with the actual Chikan Tower, I actually enjoyed the vibrant colors and bold brush strokes of his painting in some ways more than the actual tower. While the tower is a must visit, it is a small building, probably grand for the 17th century, though it may be underwhelming for the contemporary visitor, which made me reflect on what Arthur Schopenhauer said about art. To properly understand Schopenhauer's theory of art, we first have to understand what ideas he was reacting to. These were the ideas of Plato's firstly, and then Immanuel Kant's. Plato's theory of forms is that there is a somewhat heavenly realm where there are the forms of things, such as perfect love, perfect justice, kindness, horses, human beings, and so on. In his book, The Republic, Plato is critical of artists and poets, and by poets, he means all writers of fiction. He sees them as creators of imitations, and hence are people dealing in untruths, an imitation being an untruth, a lie of the real thing. For instance, let us consider artist Vincent van Gogh's painting of his bedroom, specifically his bed. Already his bed is not the real bed, since the real bed is not here on earth, but in the Platonic heavenly realm of the forms. The artist aggravates the problem by now making a representation of his earthly bed, which is an imitation of the ideal bed. So the artist is creating something that is 2 steps removed from the real thing, from the true bed. His painting is a lie of a lie. Now let's come to Kant. Kant in his critique of pure reason showed clearly that all that a human being can understand are merely representations. When Van Gogh sees his bed, he is not seeing his bed in itself. Instead, what he is seeing is a representation created in his mind from his sense perception, after it is processed through Kant's categories, space, and time. These categories, space, and time are the structure of the mental faculty of our understanding. When the light rays from the bed hits our eyes, that raw data still needs processing before we can make sense of what it is that is being sensed. We can never understand the raw data before processing it, and we have to process it through the structure of our understanding. It is like your computer's user interface. Imagine if we only had the raw data output of the computer, which are ones and zeros. We would be unable to understand it. We need to process it through programs, which then structure them into the graphical interface we are used to. Relating this back to Plato, Kant's theory already problematizes the Platonic theory of forms. Plato thinks that art is a process of imitation, which he condemns because it is not the real thing. But Kant now has explained why anything we experience is never the real thing. According to Kant, we can never get to the real thing, which he calls noumena, because we cannot understand anything without processing it through the structure of our understanding, after which all we have are phenomena or representations, which is the word Schopenhauer uses. According to Bertrand Russell's reading of Kant, it is like a blue spectacles that has been permanently glued onto our faces. We cannot take it off, and hence everything we see is in shades of blue, though that is not how things are in reality. However, since we cannot remove the blue spectacles in the same way we cannot remove our structure of understanding, we cannot see the true colors of things in the case of the blue spectacles, and we cannot see the true nature of things in the case of ourselves. Hence, already from the start, human beings are condemned to never be able to understand the true nature of things, making Plato's criticism of poets and artists unfounded, since it is not only artists and poets that make representations, but all of us. According to Kant, no one is able to get to the true nature of things. Schopenhauer, who sees himself as a follower of both Plato and Kant, makes a brilliant synthesis of their ideas in his theory of art. Schopenhauer follows Plato in thinking that there is a form, a true essence of things which he calls the will. Schopenhauer follows Kant in thinking that we, as phenomenal beings, understand the world as representations processed through the structure of our understanding. So, from that angle, we understand things only as representations and not the true thing in itself. For instance, if I was brought to Van Gogh's room and sees his actual bed, I have a mental representation of his bed, but my representation may differ from Van Gogh's, and for that matter, how anyone else may see it. For instance, one may view it as dirty and dingy, while the artist who had spent many hours of his life sleeping in it may view that same bed with great affection. According to Schopenhauer, we act in the realm of representations, but there also is the realm of the will, which he explains thoroughly in his magnum opus, The World as Will and Representation. Schopenhauer's big breakthrough is that unlike Kant, he thinks there is a way we can get to the world as will, what Plato calls forms and what Kant calls noumena. While we sense objects external to us and understand them only as representations, there is one thing that we understand not only as representations but also as thing in itself. That thing is ourselves. We see our hands moving the way we see external objects moving. But the critical difference is, when we see our hands move, we feel within ourselves the will to move our hand. Our will to move our hands coincide with our hands moving. So we know there is something within us that is the driver of our bodily movements. That thing is our will. So we know how our will feels like, and in that way, comprehend how a being with will may feel. By analogy, we recognize that beings that are like us must have similar wills within them. And by extension, it probably goes for other intelligent beings also, such as animals. And by even further extension, all things have within them a will, in Schopenhauer's account. So far, I have given a brief explanation to Plato's, Kant's, and Schopenhauer's metaphysics, that is, their account of the nature of reality, and have briefly talked about Plato's disdain for those making imitations, such as writers and artists. I am now going to relate it to Schopenhauer's theory of art. Schopenhauer believes, like Plato, that there is indeed an idealized form of things, which he calls the will. He also thinks Kant has got how we only understand the world as representations right. However, he does not share Plato's disdain for writers and artists. Instead, Schopenhauer considers the good artists as geniuses, as they are able to penetrate through the representations they perceive to get to the nature of the things in themselves which are the subjects of their art. They also have the technical ability to transfer their understanding to their medium, be it painting, sculpture, literature, or poetry. So let us consider Van Gogh's painting of his bed. I think we can agree that he is a candidate of the artistic genius Schopenhauer is thinking about. In anybody's perception of things, there is what is essential and what is unessential. Van Gogh, in his ingenuity, is able to pick out what is truly essential about his bed and paint it onto a canvas. For instance, is the mote of dust at the foot of the bed essential to the nature of the bed in itself? Clearly not. But are the mattress and bed frame essential? Yes, they are. While my examples are deliberate, gross oversimplifications, Schopenhauer's point is that the artist can, in his ingenuity, pick out and depict the essential elements of things, in that way bringing them to the ordinary people who otherwise are stuck in their own representations, unable to comprehend the true essence of things. That, to Schopenhauer, is the value that artists bring to humankind. Now, how does this compare to Plato's understanding? Plato was derisive of artists because he thinks they are purveyors of imitations, of falsehoods. To people who are after the truth, art is therefore harmful. However, if Plato is right, then there are in fact no people whatsoever that will be able to know the truth, to know reality, since according to Kant, all we can know are representations. Schopenhauer thinks, however, that artists, contra Plato, are precisely the ones who in their genius can penetrate to the true nature of things and convey them to us through their works. Hence, following Plato's theory of forms, Schopenhauer arrives at precisely the opposite conclusion to Plato on the status of artists in society. To Schopenhauer, artists are not purveyors of lies the way Plato sees it, but instead are the ones who can possibly convey truth to us. Thank you for listening to the Philosophical Bachelor.